Rwanda could reshape not just African geopolitics, but the entire global balance of power, with Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's leader, rejecting Western dominance and teaming up with Paul Kagame's Rwanda. This alliance is sending shockwaves through global corridors of power. Chapter 1. The Rising Stars of African Sovereignty. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré has been making headlines for his unapologetic stance against Western interference. After taking power in 2022, Traoré has been clear about one thing: the days of Burkina Faso relying on France, the US, or any other Western nation for military support are over. Instead, he's pivoting toward African solutions, forming alliances with countries like Rwanda, which is celebrated for its stability and military efficiency. On the other side of this pact is Paul Kagame, Rwanda's president, who has transformed his country from the ashes of genocide into a model of stability and security. Rwanda's military is not only one of the best trained in Africa, but has also been instrumental in peacekeeping missions across the continent. This experience in stabilizing fragile regions makes Rwanda the perfect partner for Burkina Faso, which is grappling with insurgencies in the Sahel. But here's the twist. This partnership isn't just about combating insurgencies. It's about rejecting a centuries-old system of Western dominance. Both leaders are signaling that Africa no longer needs foreign powers to secure its future. And that's a message certain leaders, like Trump, won't take lightly. Chapter 2. Why the West is watching closely. For decades, Western nations have held a tight grip on Africa's security landscape. France, for instance, has had a significant military presence in West Africa, citing counterinsurgency efforts as justification. But critics argue this presence has more to do with securing access to Africa's resources, gold, oil, and critical minerals like cobalt, than promoting stability. Burkina Faso's recent expulsion of French troops is part of a larger pattern across the Sahel. Mali has also pivoted away from France, choosing instead to align with Russia's Wagner Group. These moves are causing unease in the West, where leaders like Trump see Africa's pivot towards self-reliance and non-Western partnerships as a direct challenge to Western influence. Traoré's military pact with Rwanda intensifies this unease. Why? Because it's not just about breaking ties with the West, it's about building something new. A partnership between two African nations focused on African-led solutions undermines the narrative that Africa needs the West to survive. It also challenges the West's long-standing economic and military dominance on the continent. Chapter 3. What's at stake for Africa? Security in Africa is directly tied to economic stability. In the Sahel, insurgencies have disrupted trade, destroyed infrastructure, and hindered development. Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali are among the countries most affected, with their economies losing billions due to instability. Rwanda, with its holistic approach to security, combining military power with community engagement and reconciliation, offers a blueprint for post-conflict stabilization. This is what makes the Rwanda-Burkina Faso partnership so powerful. It's not just about defeating insurgents, it's about rebuilding nations. A united African military strategy, as exemplified by this pact, could save countries millions of dollars annually by reducing reliance on foreign troops and peacekeeping missions. Imagine the economic potential unlocked if Africa could secure its own resources and stabilize its own trade routes without Western intervention. Traoré and Kagame understand this. They're not just working to secure their borders, they're working to secure Africa's future. Chapter 4. The economic shift that terrifies the West. The West's dominance in Africa hasn't just been military, it's been economic. For decades, Western nations have exploited African resources under the guise of aid or investment, in exchange for financial aid. African nations often had to grant mining rights or other economic concessions to Western corporations. But that model is breaking down. Burkina Faso's recent alignment with Russia and China signals a shift toward partnerships that don't come with strings attached, and a unified African defense strategy backed by strong alliances like the one between Burkina Faso and Rwanda. could accelerate this shift. If African nations can secure their own resources, they can negotiate on their own terms. This could mean higher prices for minerals like cobalt, which are critical for industries like tech and electric vehicles. Western economies that rely on cheap African resources could face significant challenges, especially if Africa decides to prioritize trade with partners like China or develops its own industries. For example, the cost of cobalt on the global market could rise dramatically if Africa no longer allows Western nations to dictate prices. This shift could cost the West billions of dollars annually, disrupting industries from tech to energy. Though the specifics of the deal's financial terms are under wraps, such partnerships often involve hefty investments, advanced training programs, intelligence sharing frameworks, and joint operations come with costs running into millions of dollars. However, the long-term payoff, stability, security, and enhanced defense capabilities far outweighs the initial investment. Chapter 5: A New Era of African Unity. The partnership between Traoré and Kagame isn't just about two nations. It's a symbol of what Africa could achieve if it united. A Pan-African military coalition could revolutionize how the continent handles security threats, from insurgencies to human trafficking. Currently, many African nations rely on Western-led peacekeeping missions to address conflicts, but these missions often prioritize Western interests over African needs. A united African defense force could change that, allowing the continent to address its own challenges without foreign interference. This coalition could also save Africa millions of dollars by pooling resources for military training, technology, and intelligence. Instead of each nation developing its own defense capabilities, they could collaborate, creating a stronger, more efficient system. Rwanda's military expertise, combined with Burkina Faso's determination to reject Western dependency, could serve as the foundation for this new model. And if other nations follow their lead, Africa could become a global force to be reckoned with. Chapter 6: The Global Impact of Africa's Independence. The rise of a united African defense force would have global implications. For the West, it would mean losing control over a region that has been central to its geopolitical strategy for centuries. For emerging powers like China and Russia, it would mean gaining a stronger ally in their efforts to challenge Western dominance. Western military bases in Africa, like those in Djibouti, could face increased opposition from local governments. Aid programs that have long been used to manipulate African politics could lose their influence, and global markets, particularly for resources like oil and minerals, would have to adapt to Africa's new terms. This shift would also disrupt global power dynamics. African nations, no longer reliant on the West, could form stronger ties with other regions in the global South. This could lead to new trade agreements, stronger multilateral organizations, and a more balanced global economy. But the big question is, will Africa seize this moment? Chapter 7: The Role of Resource Control in Africa's Liberation. The battle for Africa's sovereignty isn't just being fought on military or political grounds. It's deeply intertwined with the continent's vast natural resources. For centuries, these resources, gold, oil, diamonds, and critical minerals like cobalt and lithium, have been at the heart of Africa's exploitation. Western nations have maintained economic dominance through lopsided trade agreements, aid packages that come with strings attached, and military interventions designed to secure their access to these riches. But the tides are shifting, and partnerships like the one between Burkina Faso and Rwanda could be the start of a larger movement to reclaim control over Africa's wealth. Take cobalt, for example, a mineral critical for producing electric vehicle batteries, smartphones, and renewable energy technologies. The Democratic Republic of Congo holds nearly 70% of the world's cobalt reserves, making it a linchpin in the global transition to green energy. Yet, most of the profits from cobalt mining flow to Western corporations and China, leaving African nations with only a fraction of the wealth their resources generate. Burkina Faso's alignment with nations like Rwanda and its pivot toward non-Western partnerships signal a broader desire to change this narrative. By securing their borders and stabilizing their regions, African nations could not only protect their resources, but also take control of their value chains. Instead of exporting raw materials at low prices, they could invest in local industries to process and refine these resources, creating jobs and boosting domestic economies. Imagine a scenario where Africa's oil is refined on African soil, where its gold and diamonds are turned into finished products within the continent, and where its cobalt powers African-manufactured batteries. This shift could inject billions of dollars into African economies annually, reducing dependency on foreign investment and aid. The partnership between Burkina Faso and Rwanda also highlights the potential for resource sharing among African nations. For instance, while Burkina Faso has rich gold reserves, Rwanda excels in mining and processing minerals like coltan and tin. Collaborative efforts could allow these nations to pool their expertise, ensuring that Africa, not foreign powers, dictates the terms of its resource management. This approach could be scaled continent-wide, creating a united front that prioritizes African interests over global corporate profits. Yet, the road to resource sovereignty is not without challenges. Western nations, which have built entire industries around the exploitation of African resources, will undoubtedly resist these changes. Sanctions, trade restrictions, and diplomatic pressure are likely to follow. However, if African nations can back their economic ambitions with strong, united military coalitions like the one forming between Burkina Faso and Rwanda, they might just succeed in rewriting the rules of global resource trade and securing their rightful place as equal players on the world stage. Chapter 8. What happens next? Traoré and Kagame are showing what's possible when African leaders prioritize sovereignty and self-reliance. But their success depends on whether other nations join them. Will countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt follow their lead? Can the African Union fully commit to a Pan-African defense strategy? Or will divisions within the continent prevent this vision from becoming a reality? The stakes couldn't be higher. If Africa succeeds, it could redefine its role on the global stage, breaking free from centuries of exploitation and dependency. If it fails, the status quo of Western dominance will continue. And what about the West? Will leaders like Trump accept a more independent Africa? Or will they push back against this rising tide? These questions aren't just theoretical, they affect all of us, whether you're in Africa, the US, or anywhere else. The shift in African geopolitics will have ripple effects on the global economy, international relations, and even the products we use every day. So, what do you think? Will more African nations join this movement toward unity and self-reliance, or will the West find a way to maintain its grip on the continent? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tuned.